Welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything, where psychology and science meet. And we attempt to explain any and every human behavior, including, I'm going to spin my wheel of behaviors on my phone.
It's a Behaviormatic 5000.
Behaviormatic 5000. Talking to my pets like they are real people. It's not that odd.
No, it's not odd at all, and it's only odd if they're really talking back. That's
Unless you, what about a parrot? What if you want a parrot?
Are we talking parroting back, or are we talking actual talking back conversationally?
This is getting behavioral. We're getting into verbal operants really quick.
Yeah, no, it's gonna get real into like, what is your definition of verbal behavior? Are we talking any like behavior mediated by the vocal community, or are we talking like conversational? It has to have a back and forth, like intraverbal type behavior, you know?
I do know. Brad, do you talk
know
to animals
what we're talking
like
about?
people?
It's literally his job to talk to animals.
While at home, I will have conversations with my cats. A lot of times they'll do something and then I'll look at them, and it won't even be I say something to them. It's a question. I'll say, what did you think was going to come about in doing this? And hoping that I get a response for their actions.
And then he does.
Yeah.
No, but that's probably for another episode, but that's kind of the point too, is like verbal behavior doesn't have to be vocal. It can be that communicative. They could give you a look, and if it mediates your behavior in a communicative type way, then that fits some definitions, but not all definitions. And so that's why you have to come up with that definition, that what is it that humans do that are different than animals, because that's that dividing line.
Yeah, because it's not a verbal behavior by any means, but my cat Stella, she'll give like the love bite, but then as soon as I look at her and say her name when she's doing that, she'll be like, "Oh, you're right, not supposed to be doing this," and then the play bites will turn into like licks. And so, like, in a way, is communication, because she understood what I meant.
I have so many comments about love bites, but we're not going to get into that right now.
Love does bite, you know? Quick disclaimer. Remember, we're here for curiosity and conversation, not clinical consultation. We break down behavior the best way we can from a deterministic, science-based perspective for education and, more importantly, entertainment purposes only. Nothing you hear should be taken as personal advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So relax, enjoy our analysis, and consult a qualified professional for any individual concerns. We also didn't introduce ourselves. We should probably do that too.
I was going to do that afterwards. You did the intro, then the disclaimer, and then I was going to say, hey, or we can switch it around. I can say, hey, this is who we are, and then you can do the disclaimer. What do you think?
We're rolling, man, so we just got to do it.
I know. Maybe people should like let us know what they think we should do.
Yes, chime in.
I'm Dr. Steven Sparks, your host, with my co-host Kyle Steury, and then with us again today is Dr. Bradley, the Catman Clements. Ladies, he's single as well.
Missed opportunity, actually. I have my coffee mug that says, "Oh, my background has been exposed." That says "Cat Dad" on it. I should have used it next time.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this. You're not really a catman per se. You have two cats, but that's probably as much because you rescued them during school, and it's easier to have a cat during school than other pets. But
fish,
if you did, fish is not a pet. I don't care what anybody says. They're just floating things in my room.
Fish are friends, not food.
But if you found a cat lady, this could easily turn into an animal hoarding situation quickly.
I was about to say it could be a dangerous slope.
So
what are we talking about today?
Before we get into that, I was going to mention, we've been asked a few times about where we came up with this idea. Like, why do we think we should do this, basically? No, it was more like interested, but I took it as a questioning my sanity type question.
Okay.
So over the course of having this consulting company, we've had quite a few employees, team members, people I've supervised asking me like, "Oh, well, analyze this. What's this weird thing in society I've seen? How would you analyze that sort of thing?" And I'll call out Nick Christensen in particular, because I did a lot of supervision for him, and he loved putting me on the spot. And it got to be kind of a game where like he'd try to find ways to put me on the spot in front of people so I could give a quick analysis of something. And so I think it was kind of fun. So we'll try to have fun with it. But we need him working so he doesn't get to be part of this except for maybe here and there, that sort of thing. So
Nick, you can listen, but you can't play.
No, mostly because he'd try to take over my job in this podcast and then I'd have nothing to say. It's not true, but it's a little true. I also wanted to talk about the name of the podcast. It's too long. You know what I mean? Like you think about the good true crime podcasts. We've got Crime Junkies. That's quick to the point. Two words, but they're not a lot of syllables in those words. The First Degree, quick to the point. And then the others have something like, if you ever listen to True Crime All the Time, they've shortened it to TCAT. And so like it's still snappy, quick to the point. And so I was thinking what we could do, and as much as I am against mentalism and I don't believe in magic, ta-da just seems to fit too well.
DDAA.
Or T little a DAA. Ta-da. I don't know.
We got to come up with what that second little a means then.
No, the little a's, you don't pronounce, like the little a doesn't stand for something. It's little because it's just there to make the word, man.
You can just add letters.
Okay. What is the other A for then? Come like
The Amazing. You said you're not into magic.
The Amazing Doc Analyzes Anything. I thought for sure you're gonna go with like the Asshole Doc Analyzes Anything, or
at first the first word was annoying, but that doesn't fit.
That depends on who you're talking to. And
we should do another wheel of A words.
Yeah. And I want everybody to know that
you're talking.
we're not paying Brad to say these nice things, but he is my brother-in-law, so he probably knows that I'm going to cook a nice dinner some point and not invite him if he's too much of a jerk. So, yeah, we can think about that.
The annoying, and not to make a quick reference to SNL skits, but the drunk uncle. That's Steve after he's had one too many stouts, sitting there at the table.
Except instead of horrible racist things, I'm saying like science-based things that are ruining everybody's night that way. So,
I did ask for a random A descriptor word, and it came up with audacious, bold, daring, and fearless.
That's not. Yeah, I mean that might work. The bold daring, I was thinking more audacious is in the negative, but either way, like
the audacity.
Yeah.
The audacity of a doc who analyzes anything.
And everything. So just wait till you run into me in public.
Work in progress.
Topics or before we get too deep into our topic for this episode, we need to note that what we had discussed in an episode a couple times ago about if me and Steve are sitting at a bar and something is being discussed, and I just so happen to be watching a baseball game, which is what he used as the reference, that I may not knowingly use a phrase such as "not my ballpark." It happened. It happened. Me and Steve were at a bar and there was something being discussed.
Never been to a bar in my life.
Yep. But I meant to say that's not my circus, as like something doesn't apply to me. It's not my business. But because I just so happened to be watching that baseball game, I didn't use the word circus and I said ballpark for some reason. So free will is not existent.
He caught himself, and now we've ruined his life, and he will catch that every time for the rest of his life. I'm like, damn it. Every time. So, all right. Real quick, back to ta-da, though. The best thing about this, I think, is we can do like shirts with Kyle in the suit pulling my head out of the hat, and then like Brad in the gown next to him going like ta-da. And
I like it.
Yeah. So someone that's much better with AI stuff than me and Chat GTP, go ahead and get on that for me. So
perfect. The fact that you called it Chat GTP tells me everything that we need to know about how good you are with it.
It's like the video game, the racing video game, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's no. You're right. Never mind.
Yeah, that's what I was chatting about. I don't know about you.
Yep. Nope. My bad.
I tried to make an image once, and it was so not what I wanted that I got frustrated and never looked at it again. So
It's probably worth not. The way that it's destroying the planet is probably
yeah,
good not to take too many retakes.
yeah. All right. So today we're going to be talking about Pride and Prejudice, the book. It's a book review, right?
No, I didn't read.
Pride and Dignity, and like we're kind of talking about in terms of how interesting it is, the things that people find pride in, even though it's what a lot of people may not find pride in, like those nuances of, is there something we should be prideful? Is there stuff we shouldn't be prideful? Or in general, is it just you find your own reinforcement with whatever you're doing, and it doesn't really matter what everybody's prideful in? We just kind of let everybody admire their own. To steal from a professor I have, you got to admire everybody else's and let them admire their own mud pies. You know what I mean? Like, you may not
Okay.
think it's that cool, but hey, cool for you, you know?
So like taking pride in something, or so how does dignity go along with that?
So dignity, let's go with the full definition.
Okay.
According to Oxford, the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect, a sense of pride in oneself and self-respect. And so dignity
Okay.
is kind of it's weird because pride is often thought of as a negative thing and dignity is a positive, but they are very much one and the same thing, just kind of a different lens on the two. And so we'll get into kind of the way we talk about a society here in a minute, but to me, they're almost analogous. It's not a perfect overlap, not a perfect fit, but I don't know you can really analyze or talk about one without the other. And for those that are getting whiplash with us going from no free will to then talking about cults to then going to more of a broad topic like dignity and pride, the idea is kind of to switch back and forth between things, kind of make it like a little more conceptual in some episodes, a little bit more like, oh, what's that weird thing we're seeing in society, and the other. And then everybody can, and by everybody, if anybody actually listens to us, can let us know what they like more, and we can do more of those sort of things. But I think from a listener standpoint, they probably will think things like cults are more interesting. And then from a scientific perspective, I and probably Kyle are like, no, let's talk about this stuff, man. This is like cool, dude. Check this out. Like, how's this work? You know, so
Lost in the sauce.
yeah, I mentioned in another podcast we're doing for the company, but these theoretical conversations really are the same as like those old stoner conversations you have back in college and high school, except it's actually based in reality and not weird made up stuff that doesn't really make any sense. So it's probably why I like having theoretical conversations so much, even though I'm not indulging in those other activities anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, the paranoia became real during grad school. It's just not good for you.
Not the kids or anything.
Mhm.
Not
No,
nephews.
it was well before the kids that I decided I was not enjoying that anymore. But that's a story for another time.
Another day.
Yeah. So where I get my kind of, I don't know if basis is the right word, but where helped formulate my idea of dignity and pride really was the book Beyond Freedom and Dignity, which you can see behind me here on the table, by B.F. Skinner, because it talks about it not in terms of being prideful or what society thinks of pride, but like this more theoretical scientific analysis of what is pride and what is freedom. And freedom we'll get to much later. And I think freedom is the part of that book that people probably have even more issue with than the dignity. But it is my favorite book. And Anthony Burgess, who wrote A Clockwork Orange, also called it possibly the most dangerous book of the 20th century, because it tears down these ideas of freedom and dignity scientifically to the point where you question, is it really something that exists, or is it just artifact of our language that we've discussed and talked about things in a way that have come to these concepts. We've basically built the concept rather than it being a natural phenomenon.
Mm.
And his argument was, at least from my run in line, because I haven't talked to the guy. He's probably no longer with us. I don't know, but that it could give too much power and like brainwashing power to governments to do what we want by saying, well, you don't really have any freedom anyways, so what's it matter if we give you freedom or not? But I always argued that this is what government and political parties are doing anyways. They're manipulating things. They're telling us, hey, this group of people's bad and our opponents want to let them into the country, so we should then you should elect me so I can leave these people out, even though you're talking about one or two select people from a group that may be a bad egg. You're not talking about, in general. Right. And so if we're already using fear to gain support and manipulate things, I think understanding these topics at a more scientific level may prevent that more than it can actually cause it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think the people in power understand this concept or to a degree, or do you think it's by chance just the way power works?
I think they do not necessarily understand it and study it and learn to manipulate it in the way we, and I shouldn't have said manipulate and then say we, because we're not trying to manipulate,
right,
the power and control, but they're not studying it the way we are, looking at the way we are. But I think they have over time come to those conclusions and figured out kind of how it works. And especially now, and the power of the internet to create fear where there wouldn't have normally been any fear is something that they've mastered quite a bit. And we'll have political conversation. We'll analyze politics later on scientifically and not take sides, because just a disclaimer so nobody comes out and calls me one side or the other. I think political parties and the political system as a whole doesn't make much sense. You should just have a group of people that want to be, the head of certain organizations up there telling you what their true beliefs are, rather than pandering to any group. And then you are analyzing each one of those claims individually and then voting for who you want, rather than saying, hey, this group saying this thing to, try to get this group of people to vote for them. This one's saying this other thing, and everybody's just following blindly and not listening to the nuances, The
Is
only
this
way,
your indirect announcement for your 2026 campaign? Sparks 2026.
I hope it never becomes one of those things where I decide, you know what, I need to try to run for something because I can't handle this anymore. Because first of all, independents never get elected for in large office, and second of all, none of it makes a lot of sense, as people will learn as we do more and more of these episodes. The way I look at things and the way I analyze it, none of this is planned. None of this is designed. It's people going in, making rules, saying, oh, that doesn't quite work. Let's tweak it this way, tweak it that way. And now you have these confounding things that just people take for granted as this is how it's supposed to be, rather than actually taking the time, break it down, plan and design things in a way that actually work for people. And that just drives me absolutely insane. So I'll never be able to play the politician, but there might be a time in life where I'm just you know what, I can't stand it anymore. I'm going for it. So we'll see.
I like it.
So all that is part of the freedom discussion more than the dignity discussion.
Yeah.
And that will be one we have sometime in the future, I'm sure. But let's let people like us a little bit more before I explain to them that there's no such thing as freedom. We've already started off with no free will. So I guess that could have just tied right into the freedom.
Kind of the same thing. Yeah.
But, you're pretty much saying, just in reality, everyone that's listening to this, you were on a timeline. You're just coasting or coasting through.
No, well, yes and no. Because, man, you're trying to get me down rabbit holes here that'll take all day.
The multiverse.
I was about to say, I am speaking on the multiverse.
I know. We all find meaning in our lives, but the way I end every episode, there really is no knowing if there's any true meaning to any of this. We can't know. We don't have the scientific ability to see what's coming, if that's even possible to see what's coming, and to know how a lot of these things work. All we know is how to study and analyze with the information we have, and then build upon that to create more and find more information. And so what most of us are doing, even the great minds of our generation, are likely to be found to be, either bunk or just not important in the future. And so let's not take it too seriously, but every individual action may have meaning to you, but in the long run, there's a good chance that we're all just coasting through and none of it really matters, is really the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're such an uplifting group.
There's no way that we can know what will happen, but there is a very obvious choice. Time travel.
We're not even doing that. We're
Got a
getting
little
back.
time machine behind you there, Brad.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Back to topic.
I was reading my 3-year-old a book called, if anybody's ever read Dragons Love Tacos, Dragons Love Tacos 2 is where they try time travel because the world's run out of tacos. And at one point, they get hot sauce in the machine and it starts sending them to other parallel universes. They don't say that, but you can tell what's going on, where like dragons are eating diapers instead of tacos. And at one point, tacos are eating dragons. And so let's stick away from the time travel as much as we can.
It's madness.
Yes.
Going back to the topic, so want to delineate here. We're joking that like freedom and dignity don't exist, but the state of feeling free, or like the state, like there's obviously, like, I've felt not free to do things. There's obviously been, points in history where people were not free. There's parts of me that have been, I've felt like I've been treated in an undignified way. So like, you want to like parse through that, like where that might come in play?
I'll do two things, and I'm going to say one more thing about freedom, and then I'll leave it as a cliffhanger for that one, because I don't want to make this a double episode here. Just because it's not something that exists in nature without our creation of verbal behavior doesn't mean it's not real to us. And so when I say it's not real, what I mean is without our invention of it, it's not real. And so the real part of that, other discussion will be what makes you more free. You have a government who has these like laws and rules that we put into place and that are, changed over time, in theory anyways, to keep us safe. Is that freedom because now you have the freedom to be safe from your neighbors or the other people around you? Or is true freedom, going back before we joined hunter-gatherer groups, we're just living in small pods and fighting for survival every day, and the person, like the group next door, may come after to try to steal our food and kill us. You know what I mean? And some would argue that's real true freedom. But
yeah,
what is the life expectancy? What is the anxiety level? Like, is that truly as free as having rules in place that take away your freedom, but then allow you to live a freer life? You know what I mean? And
sure,
that is more that side of the discussion we can get into later. But I think when I say something's not real, what we're really talking about is the issue of reification. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking reification, let's see, I think I actually wrote down the definition here for everyone so I don't just make up my own, but it's the act of treating an abstract concept, idea, or belief as if it were a concrete object or thing. And so what we always talk about it in our science is like to call a process a thing, to say that love is a physical thing that exists, or to treat it as such, rather than part of our verbal behavior, the release of, different neurotransmitters, the feeling that we have when we're in love. That is a process. That is a set of behaviors. That is something that we have called a thing, but does not necessarily fit that definition of a thing scientifically. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, love exists, but not in the way society talks about it. So then I'll say, oh, well, love isn't real. And everybody's going to think, you're crazy. You know what I mean? Sure, we're experiencing it. It is real in of our experience and how we treat it as a society.
Maybe you guys are.
I'm just kidding. But it is scientifically a reification. And so I often will say things aren't real just to get people, psyched up. Like, oh, I'm going to fight you on this one. Then just to backpedal. Like, well, yeah, it's real to you. It's just not real. You know what I mean?
The old whatever floats your boat kind of comment.
Yeah, we've invented it as humans, So we're talking about as a concept, pride is a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction. I don't know what happened there. Anybody smell toast? Derived from one's own achievements, the achievements of those with whom one is closely associated with, or the qualities or possessions that they are widely admired for. And so what really is interesting is the wide variety of things that people find pride in, and that many others would not find pride in, or would also, in many aspects, think that that's something you should be ashamed of, yet we're prideful of. It's kind of where I want to take it in general, and also discussion of pride is by some groups considered like one of the deadly sins, and by others it's kind of lauded and applauded to be prideful of what you have. And how does that all work together?
What is something that you're proud of that I don't know about you?
That you don't know? I'm a fairly open book, so I don't know if there's much that you don't know. I'm prideful of the extravagant cold brew coffee drip system I made out of lab equipment.
I don't know this about you.
No?
It's right. He's kind of toned it down a bit.
My personality or the coffee machine?
The coffee. It was a full on. Sorry to hijack your proud moment. Bad of me. But yeah, it was like a whole like a chemistry titration set practically, where it dripped down and then it run through like the spiral and then come through. And he kind of eliminated some of the little pieces, but it's still pretty impressive.
Well, let's be fair, that is not due to choice as much as because your sister, my wife, broke pieces and I didn't feel like replacing them anymore. So it was my fault for leaving them out where they could be broken. It was not anything I'm blaming her for, but there are pieces missing, and that is all right. I was trying to find a picture of it, but I don't know how to find pictures or anything on this thing. So
I think I have a picture of it somewhere, actually.
So
don't share your screen because it'll ruin my recording. But you can show me on your phone.
Wouldn't dream of it.
It's too late. You've ruined it now.
But you have a homemade cold brew.
Yeah, so just more about me that's unnecessary for this episode. I don't like warm beverages very much. Like every once in a while, like hot spiced cider or something kind of sounds good in the fall. But other than that, I hate the fact that it's too hot to drink, it's too hot to drink, it's too hot to drink. And then when it finally cools.
See this well?
I can. I can't. Now I can. Look at that.
So yeah, once it cools down enough, it's kind of lost some of its flavor. It's starting to get stale already. You know what I mean? And I just want it. Probably the same reason I like dark, strong stouts is because I like that, chocolatey, malty, dark flavor. And so cold brew you can heat up if you want it warm. So my wife wants her coffee hot in the morning. She can still heat it up, but I can drink it cold and it still maintains its flavor. So that's where I started down this path. Then I saw it's actually a Japanese technique. I can't remember the name of it for this drip system, but one that makes enough coffee for us to have on hand. It was like over $1,000. So I just went online and built my own using lab equipment.
Fantastic. I like that. I was gonna say I was proud of my Sudoku time yesterday, but that's not as cool now.
Pride has a lot to do with developing reinforcers for oneself too. You know what I mean? Like, how do I keep doing the mundane little things I'm doing if I don't find a way to take pride in finishing some of those things? Or especially now, the family life, you're kind of just running through, you're busy all day, one thing to the next. Finding the little things that you enjoy, the little projects to take pride in, that sort of thing can kind of really help you find new activities. And something I'm sure we'll talk about in the future is the importance of having a wide variety of reinforcers in life to prevent things like depression and that sort of thing.
Sure.
But I think a lot of the times we're finding pride for now, like historically, there was more reason to be boastful and prideful in terms of like you think about the ancient Olympics versus the modern Olympics. Like those were things that you were doing, like javelin throw. We're talking, before firearms, you were showing off to the other either tribes or groups or other countries, like, hey, look how good or how strong we are. Don't mess with us. You know what I mean? Or you had the
Sure.
fastest people that could be able to do things in battle or get a message to your armies. Like those activities were all functional. And now, as much as I enjoy watching the Olympics when they come along, the fact that we as a country in the United States took so much pride in curling when the United States men's team won curling gold, it's fun, but it's also like, should we like, is that really something to be prideful compared to like back in the day when you were really showing like, hey, this is our strength as a country, as a group, you know what I mean?
I
Yeah.
think it's very important, the break dancing. I don't know if you guys saw that one. I think that shows survival right there.
I love the fact that the girl that everybody was hating on, the lady, I should say, the professor, was doing
Yeah.
it in a way that was like breaking down technically how to get a high score without actually even having to be that athletic. You know what I mean? And like she hit every key component, and it was not much to look at, but she was doing the things that would score you high rather than the things that would impress the crowd. And I kind of get some strange enjoyment of the fact that she was like, it's almost like finding loopholes, but not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good segue too, because I'm sure she was very proud of her routine up until the rest of the world treated her in such a way that indicated that she should not be proud of that routine.
Yeah. But she did, like, I think, win a competition shortly after that. Like it was,
Really?
yeah, like because she studies it as a form of dance and knows how the scoring works. She knows what she's doing very well. But to me, I'm like, I need to see you spin on your head for at least like 30 seconds, otherwise it doesn't count.
We're simple creatures. Just spin on your head, like don't stop, keep spinning. There we go.
What was that one movie back in the day with the whole basis of the movie was like break dancing?
I can guarantee that was not something I was watching at that time. I remember it coming out. I remember, I was like, you got served or something like that. I don't know. Oh no, that was probably the South Park episode. It's gonna come up every time when like I watched as a 12 to like 16, 17-year-old watched so much South Park that like it's just ingrained in my brain now. Yeah, I had a friend back in high school, Josh, and Josh had one arm and he could break dance like crazy. It was really cool to see. But even better than that is he had his prosthetic arm and he like it wasn't too obvious and he'd throw it at random people and that was hilarious. It was awesome. I hope he's doing well. I haven't seen him literally probably since I was 14 or 15. But so when we're talking about pride and dignity like this too, it's thinking about like, are there good reasons or bad reasons to be prideful? You know what I mean? And good or bad scientifically don't necessarily exist. It's up to the societal norms, like what they think. I think many people would say that it's okay to feel proud about being altruistic, but at that point, it's no longer altruism. You know what I mean? There is no doing something just because you're a good person. If you're doing it because it makes you feel good, because altruism is the belief or practice of disinterested and selflessness concern and well-being for others, according to Oxford again. But without reinforcement, behavior doesn't happen. And so if it's truly selfless, you'd be doing it just for the other person. But even if it just makes you feel good, now you're doing it for yourself as well. And so altruism in itself, it doesn't exist. And so I think that brings up the question is, why would there be then something that's negative about pride also? You know what I mean? Like if there is no I'm doing this good thing just for the sake of doing this good thing. Why would one act which has a benefit society be better than another?
And I'm not sure how much it applies here, but the idea of altruism actually, when in animal behavior that we discussed pretty extensively in school, undergrad school, not actual, they don't teach stuff like that in med school, but altruism, an interesting idea with it that we talked about was that you take one group and even the selflessness of one individual betters the chances of another individual's chance of reproducing or something along the lines of that is how that persists in that nature. So would you see any way of that playing a role in like human interactions?
I think early humanoid, very much so, probably still somewhat to an extent, but our language and our development of language, and starting off, at least if what we kind of guess happened is correct, with grunt, like it's gonna rain, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And then it starts to develop. Oh, I have to differentiate one grunt from another, and it finally, and obviously they weren't speaking American English, but let's pretend they were. It develops into rain, but then you point to the sky and you're like, rain, and then it doesn't rain. Now that behavior is going to be punished. But if it does rain, it'll be reinforced. And so we had to start bringing up what us behavior analysts call autoclitic behavior, or qualifying statements. Like, I think it's going to rain. And so now you'll still get the reinforcement, but you're unlikely to be punished. Might actually be reinforced by other conversation. Oh, hey, it didn't end up raining, but thanks for the warning, and it becomes more and more complex and difficult to analyze. Then you take into account of self-talk and how that basically is what the mind is. It's hard to ever say it's one thing or the other. Is it really a biological reaction to the environment around you? Is it language? It's probably very much a lot of different systems all working together. And I'm sure over time, unless nobody listens to us and everybody's just annoyed by my voice, we'll break down many of those things, separately, and then kind of come up with an overall concept at some point. But it's not an easy yes or no answer, I don't think, for that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And my bad to jump off of.
No, you're no bad there. It's there's so many interesting things I'd like to just go on a tangent of, and we'd literally be here for 10 hours and I'd go over very little of the things I actually want to talk about. You know what I mean? So, so I've lost my place completely. So let's just jump on to the next thing. So let's think about in terms of the things that society will say are good or bad, right or wrong, and what people find pride in, or people try to take away other people's pride in. Like, let's think about it in terms of choosing a mate. And one person may find it prideful that the person they're with is very attractive. And then someone else say, hey, no, that's superficial. You should go after someone for their brain or for their personality. But when you really break it down, again, no such thing as altruism. Really, it's what you find reinforcing to yourself. Is there really one of those that is more correct or makes more sense or is more superficial than the other? You know what I mean? Like, sure, someone's looks may not be reinforcing someone else. I think more likely they're trying to find more pride in their situation by saying that about, like, if they find that someone else's mate may be more attractive or smarter, we're like, oh yeah, well, mine's smarter, or mine's more attractive, and they're trying to find their own reinforcement in those situations. Mm-hmm. But I'd argue, other than societal norms of that moment, nothing really makes more sense than anything else. I mean, we think about 150 years ago, overweight people were considered more beautiful just because, hey, you're more likely to survive. You have some means, you're doing all right for yourself. And obviously that's changed a lot since then. And so,
sure,
what is it then, that, and I think historically too, like, money was a much bigger deal in terms of will this person give me the life to survive, or, you know, build a life where we're actually going to do well. I think very little marriages, probably Victorian times and before that, had anything to do with love or looks, except for those that, like, hey, neither of us have anything, so let's just pair up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think as a society, it's interesting to look at the fact that we act like some of these things are more important or have greater meaning than others. But when you really break it
Yeah.
down, I don't think anything has any really greater meaning than anything else. Each subculture is going to have their own social norms that allow you to have pride. And then a lot of people will find pride in being in counterculture. And so being any deviation from what the culture says is good is prideful for them too. I mean, think about how many people, and I don't know how many listeners are still on Facebook these days, but like anybody, and I shouldn't say anybody, a lot of people above a certain age will boast about, you know, well, look at this, you know, if you recognize this item, then you had a great childhood or you've lived a great life, just because they're finding pride in their age being older. And then, you know, for a fact that a lot of the younger people are looking at it and like, oh, that's silly, and finding pride in being youthful. And that's literally just surviving or not having lived as much. Like, there's not much reason to take pride in either one, other than the fact that you're trying to find, you know, reinforcement in your life situation at that moment.
Right. Right.
I mean, fitness, the people that will see someone who's not fit and judge because they feel better about themselves for being extra fit, and like, that's great for your health. And so there should be some level of reinforcement, just knowing that's good for your health. But again, does one make someone a better person than the other? No, but they'll think it to themselves that they're better for it. That sort of
Yeah.
thing. Money and success, same sort of thing. Like, if there's no greater meaning to, or at least there's no evidence or knowledge that there's a greater meaning to any of this, and what does it really matter, especially if you can't take it with you? I've always taken the stance that, like, as long as I have enough to care for what I need, the rest is just for reinforcement and toys. Like, and yes, I find reinforcement trying to, you know, donate and help people out and that sort of thing. But after a certain point, anything left over is like, all right, let's make sure we're set up for the future. So if something goes wrong, we're not, you know, screwed. But all right, let's spend too much money on lab equipment to build this cold brew coffee drip machine. You know what I mean? But not enough to buy the real Japanese version that was way more expensive.
Yes. Yes. How does, so I never think of, and maybe I'm going off topic too fast, but I never think dignity and pride synonymously, or I never like arrange the two. Like, where is dignity on this continuum? I know the word pride is in the dignity definition, but I think dignity of more, like when I say it colloquially, I just kind of mean like treating people with like a certain like human fairness, and just, yeah, affording them like basic, you know, human dignity, affording them basic, you know, courtesy and respect. Are we saying, and did Skinner say that in the same way?
So Skinner, and I think a lot of this has to do with it being a semantics issue as well. You know what I mean? Like, the way society talks about dignity and people having dignity is not the way scientifically he or we are really talking about dignity. We are talking about it in this feeling of self-fulfillment, this pride. Like, it's a, you know, according to society as a whole, you should have this ability and this right to find that self-fulfillment in whatever it is you deem necessary, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. It's to have that dignity and self-respect. And so self-respect and pride, you can see how there's a lot of overlap there. But when in the book and scientifically when we're talking about it, we are really kind of using it fairly synonymous with pride, just because pride is thought of often being this negative thing, and dignity is often thought about being this, you know, positive thing. We talk about it differently in societal norms. But I would say, I mean, it's interesting too, because in religion, like I mentioned, pride is one of the deadly sins, yet as a society, even the people that would find themselves to be very religious would say, I think anyways, nope, we have the right to dignity. And so where is that line? And I also always thought it was very interesting, the people that are prideful about being religious, even though they are committing a sin in doing so technically. And I'm not just talking about people that like, hey, I have pride in, my beliefs, but those people that are almost like holier than thou, like, I'm better than you, I'm looking down on you because my religion's better than yours.
They'll never admit they're wrong about anything. Yeah, unwilling to meet anybody.
It really, to me, and I immediately thought of Weird Al's Amish Paradise. Like,
go on.
There's a line that's like, and I'm gonna probably say this wrong because I've not heard this since I was like 8 or 9, but like, think you're true at heart. Well, I know I'm a million times as humble as thou art. I'm the pious guy. A little Amish want to be like on my knees day in life, saying prayers for or scoring points for the afterlife. Or
no, that's right.
Like,
that's right.
The idea of like, look how much pride I'm getting for being more pious than you is a contradiction to your religion. And I always, it's not like I'm judging them or looking at them, but I'm finding it interesting that you could be this disconnected from the message and what you claim to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I apologize. I almost went full verse on that, but I'm not. It's been too long since I've heard it. So
we haven't had a good freestyle yet either. I feel like that could come up.
I am not. I'm not good at freestyling. I take too long to think. I can't do it. I might be able to bust out some DMX for you, but I cannot do it in my own lyrics. So
I would find a lot of joy in just watching you try to freestyle. I think that would be fun.
I remember like at a party in college and everybody's standing around doing like freestyle stuff. I'm like, I wanted so bad to join in, and I'm like, can't think of it. I cannot think of a darn thing. So that's just not.
Also, my Amish grandparents are rolling over in their graves talking about Amish Paradise.
But listen, at least they wouldn't have been able to hear this, and so there's that. You know what I mean? Even if they were still with us,
they probably would have.
I know, but yeah, you got to make the joke in where you can, because I'm making fun of your family, not Amish people in general. So let's get that clear. Let's make that clear. Yeah.
I can make fun of my family.
Even like looking at doctors, you know what I mean? Like, you often will hear someone say, oh, well, they're a real doctor, like a dentist versus an MD or MD versus a PhD. It's like, everybody put it on the time. They're all experts in their own area. Why would you find more pride in one versus the other, except for veterinarians? And so, and again, that's just a dig at Brad, now all other veterinarians. But it's just interesting. Like, I don't really feel this way because I'm logical to it enough to know that it's illogical, but still have that thought in the back of my head, like, oh, well, this is more of a intellectualism thing rather than a helping person thing. So that's better just because I came from the PhD background. But I know that's not logical. I mean, what's better, coming up with new ideas, helping people? And I'm actually in the line of helping people, not necessarily coming up with the new ideas too. Like, but then again, I actually find some lack of pride in the fact that I didn't go the professor research route that some of my colleagues did. And I'll talk to them and they'll say, like, no, man, like, you're doing the real work out there helping people. I feel like there should be more pride than that, than doing this thing. And so at a certain point, there's actually the opposite too, where you feel a lack of pride for what you're doing, even though one's not necessarily better than the other either,
Yeah, you're not contacting the reinforces of the other route.
Right.
Therefore, they're more desirable. Yeah.
So then with pride, how much could you look into, like, kind of the, I guess not opposite, but where comparison becomes such a thing where then pride becomes questionable in what you're doing?
I think where pride becomes an issue tends to be when you are taking away the dignity of others in your pride. Like, you're like, look how good I'm at this thing, or look at this thing I'm good at. And people will find it either aversive or maybe even downright punishing to see, hey, they're saying they're better than me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really interesting point too, is different cultures, different ideas. Like you'll see online, regardless of how much I have, I'm not going to share what I have because I don't want to alienate friends or family or other people that I like who may not have as much. You know what I mean? But in other circles, I see people online all the time, like showing off what they have, especially celebrities, like MTV Cribs. Like, look how big my house. Look at all these things, and like, I'm sure there's some people that found that aversive and it was punishing, but for a lot of others, I think like, oh, cool, I wish I was like them. And trying to determine what's okay, so like it's a societal whole or like for the majority, and where it's like it's not an easy thing to do. And maybe it's just your personality, and maybe it has to do with how much you have. Like, okay, you have more than me, but not as much as these people, so I'm going to look down on that. But once you have so much that it's insane, then now that's cool again, except for then now I'm suffering and you're not, and that's not cool again. You should, share some of the wealth. And again, I think it's individual views of it too. There's a lot of people that would say, nope, you have what you have, you should keep it. A lot of people would say, nope, that's not cool. Like, people are suffering and you're just watching. But we see the shifts in society as a whole too. And I think there's a big fracture in our society, and that's probably more of it than even the political parties, is like the views of what people should be doing to help others with so much suffering going on right now.
Sure. Yeah.
What have you all seen in terms of like, where's the line drawn between it's cool to show off the cool stuff and be prideful of things versus the nope, now you just look like a jerk, you know what I mean? Like, I can't find the line.
I had a good friend. Oh, sorry, Brad. You go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it's never like a compare, or I think the line is very vague because of the fact that like you have to, I think, share the wealth, but then also, I mean, take pride in what you have, but you can never just put yourself on some kind of pedestal. But I think if you're willing to share what you have with others, then that's kind of the line. So it's a back and forth that you have to jump between being like recognizing that you're by yourself in this regard, but not putting yourself above anyone else, if that makes sense. I feel like that was like the same thing said like 4 different ways, but there you go.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, growing up where I did, we lived in a 100-year-old house, very middle class. Just north of town were mansions everywhere by the time I was in high school. It wasn't like that. It was farmland, and then they started building all these mansions. And I remember in high school one day, some kid from one of those mansions talking to me and my other friend, and he's like, oh, you live down the ghetto, I wouldn't go down there. And like the fact that he was finding pride from having so much money when we were in a affluent area overall, there is no ghetto in this area, you know what I mean? But because we didn't have what he had, he took pride in that. And it very much built me to find pride in basically thinking others are ridiculous for their pride. You know what I mean? Like, even without the scientific knowledge or background, like, I don't care who this person is, what their station in life is, what their job is. I'm never going to let anybody act like they're better than me. Like, I don't care if the president walks in right now. I'll just shake his hand and talk to him like he's a normal person, because of instances like that where I'm like, this person's no better than me. They just happen to have been born into a family with more money. You know what I mean?
Right.
Poke fun of ourselves. What are some of your prideful things that you can be like, all right, this is just silly? What do you think? I'll start with one that I find myself doing, then afterwards I'm like, oh, that was just dumb. Because I've reached middle age, I started smoking meat, because who doesn't? You know what I mean?
That's what you do.
And you're on like the different accounts, seeing people talking about it. And I always get so much pride and think it's silly when people are like posting about like, oh, I bought this spice mix, it's so good. I'm like, oh, you fools, you're not even making your own spice mixes, how dare you? And then
look at this guy, honey.
Yeah, then I'm like, that's really a silly thing to be prideful of, is that I'm making my own spice mixes for the meat that I'm grilling, that I'm not even sharing with people unless there's someone over, or like maybe if I make too much for the neighbors. But I'm not selling this stuff. I'm not doing competitions, yet I'm getting prideful about the fact that I don't buy spice mixes.
Mm. one for me that saw how this past weekend I went down to North Carolina for the golf trip. I'm proud that I played a top 50 public course, but at the same time, I am an average at best golfer. And so to get ripped to shreds on a course while paying way too much money, you have to ask yourself, should you be proud that you just did this, or was it a waste? But then I look back at it and it's still like, no, I'm proud that I did that. Like, anything, like, it ripped me apart. Can I have some more, please?
Yeah.
Oh man. In high school, I ran track and cross country in high school and college. I'm immensely out of shape now. I don't run distance anymore. I will run with my kids when they want to run, but all my kids and all the neighbor kids all run cross country. And I love when they sit around and they're talking about their times and like secretly inside, like ask me what my best time is. Somebody, I'm not going to bring it up, but somebody asked me what my best 2 mile time is. And like,
Yeah.
did you run? Yeah, I ran 9:30. I ran 9:30 when I was in high school. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, sorry, we asked.
I love walking to a situation where people are like talking about weightlifting. I'm like, oh yeah, back in my day, I could bench over 400 pounds. I'm like, man, I sound like Al Bundy. Like,
I never, yeah. I never tried to volunteer the information. I guess I just did. That was unintentional.
But that's the whole point, is calling yourself out for the pride. So it's all right in this context, in this context only.
Talking about sports, in which I did play sports. Don't get me wrong, but like the one that I'm thinking now that's funny to me is back in the day playing Call of Duty, and like what my kill death ratio was in these games, or how good I was. And so now when I catch like win that they're like talking about that, I'm like, come on, ask me if I played. Ask me at the game.
Even like playing spades or euchre, like on the app on my phone, I'm like, I wonder if anybody else plays this, because I'm like a really high number now, and like that might be impressive.
Man, I broke our school record my senior year, only to have a future Olympian, little Andy, come on board and just shatter my record. So I only got to be up there for 1 year.
I was about to say, was it like a year later or something like that? It's not like it was like 10 years standing.
Yeah. This kid placed fourth for the 1,500 meter run qualifying Olympic qualifiers twice. Top 3 joined the team. He placed fourth 2 times, I believe. Fact check that if he's listening. But so I was proud to have lost to him, which is a I don't know how to operationalize that.
You can find pride in being second best.
Yeah, I find pride in sucking at something.
How many people were in your town? 7, 8, 9?
It's true. Oh man.
All right. And I think people are probably getting bored with hearing this at this point.
That's our show.
Anybody else? Anything to share? All right. I got a new one that I saw the other day, and so just again about not taking life too seriously. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future, and yes, the sun will probably swallow the earth before this, but if it doesn't, I saw there's a 1 in 100,000 chance that a nearby passing star could send Earth hurtling into deep space. And so we just all freeze in the next billion years or so. And so again, you just probably no point to any of this. Don't take life too seriously, but also take it seriously enough to get your stuff done and live a good life too. So
perfect. I'm looking forward to hurtling into space.
It'll be a heck of a ride. That's what I always say. Like, if I'm on an airplane and hit major turbulence and everybody's freaked out, I'm like, nothing we can do, but this will be the best roller coaster ride you've ever been on for the last few minutes. So
just make sure you buckle your seatbelt.